And we're going to get started. I'm going to say good morning, everybody. Happy Addenda Roulette Day. Very exciting. It's also September. Can anybody believe that we're in September? And I feel like we're going to be saying, can anybody believe it's Thanksgiving like tomorrow, right? So, and yes, I know, I'm already thinking about the Christmas party. Oh my gosh, crazy stuff. Oh boy. Hello, Mr. Lin Lu. How fun. Okay, so we're going to get ready to have some fun. Everybody excited? Awesome. I know that was a yes. I'm excited, Carrie. So here we go. We're going to just dig in, start having some fun. I will still admit people as they join. We're going to play it from the start. Here we go. And let me just see if I can. All right. So Addenda Roulette. Don't just scream out the answers, true or false. If a buyer wants to ask for a percentage of closing costs to go towards their buyer commission, should they use Addenda GG? In the group, can you raise your hand if you think this is true? Anybody in here think it's true? What do you think, Brady? Is it true? What do you think, Daphne? If a buyer wants to ask for a percentage for closing costs to go towards their buyer's commission, should they use a GG?
Well,
Not really.
I'll have the percentage on
Actually, it's a tricky one because I'm the tricky one of all trickies. It's false. And the reason it's false is because there's only one addenda that the buyer is using. What is the addenda that the buyer is using? Does anybody know? It is the FF. Yeah, and look, you didn't answer it. Come on, that's why we're doing this. I'm going to keep on doing it until somebody gets it right. I have said it before like 50 times, but I'm going to keep on saying it. The FF is the only addenda. Do we need to take a look at it?
Yes, please.
Okay, we're going to stop our share and we're going to take a look at it. We're going to admit all these people who are trying to come in. Hold on. Let's go back over here. We're going to stop and we're going to admit all. What the heck? Why can't I not? Okay, admit all. And we're going to take a peek here. Can everybody online see my screen as we're in dot loop? Can anyone online say yes, they can see it?
No, Carrie.
You can. Okay. Thank you for being honest and telling me that you can't see anything. That's great. Now, can you see it?
Yes.
Okay. So if we go in here and we go into our listing folder, I mean, our as is folder or a residential folder, let's see. We're going to look at our FF. Huh? Oh, and you guys are stuck. There we go. Okay, and now everybody is with me. All right, excellent. Boy, oh boy, we have to get everybody together. Fabulous. So here we are. So FF is a credit for the buyer's broker compensation, but this is the only one where the buyer is asking. They're asking the seller to credit the bottom, this amount of the purchase price that the buyer is saying that they have a separate buyer broker agreement that they're obligated to pay their buyer's broker, but they're planning on using all part or some of this to pay their buyer's broker for their compensation. So they're going to say they want either a number, an amount of the purchase price, a dollar amount, a percentage, or a percentage plus a dollar amount, right? Like, let's say there's a administrative commission. They could ask for a percentage plus they want you to pay the administrative commission. They can ask for that too. Did you know that? And in the event this exceeds the amount allowed by their lender, there's an opportunity that they can choose who they want to pay for it. And then this is where you have to select here. The balance will be paid directly from the seller, or it will go back to the lender, which would be ridiculous. Why would we do that, right? So you'd want to say the balance will be paid directly from the seller to the buyer's broker. So you have to also check this in the very case that it is beyond what the lender will allow for. Everybody with me? So this FF does two things. It is saying there's a separate agreement that the buyer has with their broker. and they've agreed to pay them a certain amount, but they're asking for a certain percentage or a dollar amount to go towards possibly paying all, part, or some of that. They could also use it for whatever else they want, can't they? They can say, yeah, we decided not to pay that. We want to use it for our closing costs. So they're not actually saying they're going to definitely use it for that. So they're really asking for closing costs and saying we may pay for the compensation that way, or we may not. But it's the buyer asking the seller directly. That is what the FF is, which is why I like to call it the easy button. Because if you don't know, if you call and ask, you're on the buy side and you say, is the seller offering compensation? And they say, no, just put in an offer, right? We get that a lot.
Yeah.
I would go in with an FF. Because if your buyer wants to ask for it, let the buyer ask for it with an FF.
Paperwork.
Okay, WORK. All right. That would mean they're working for it. I love it, WORK. Work for it. So the point is, the difference with this is part of the contract. Let us look at here, any contract, residential or as is, they're all the same. If we look, they are written right into the contract on FF. So if you've checked FF, it is now part of the
Magico inglês.
What in God's name? I'm not even sure what the heck is going on here. But anyway, so the point is, it's already in the contract. So if the seller doesn't agree to it, it's already contingent. Is everybody with me?
Yeah.
Now, if the buyer wants to ask for something, that's the only way the buyer's asking for a direct. If you're using a GG, Carrie, what is a GG? Well, let's take a look. What is the GG? The GG is not asking for anything. The GG is only a contingency. We're saying that we've used a regular compensation agreement, either the buyer's broker, seller's broker to buyer's broker, or the seller to buyer's broker, but we're making that contingent on everybody agreeing, right? That's all that is. This is only a contingency. It's nothing more. So if you're only using a GG, you know what you used? Nothing. It's only as good as the paper it's on. It's not even good as that. Because you didn't make anything contingent because you didn't put in the compensation agreement that's making it contingent. And guess what? Let's just talk about that for a second. There's no space here for the actual compensation agreement. You have to check other and write in the compensation agreement. Because you know why, guys? We're not party to the contract. That's why you have to incorporate it. The only thing that is incorporated is the FF because it's between the buyer and seller who are parties to the contract. Does that make sense? And the GG is making it contingent for the buyer and the seller. That's why it's party to the contract. Is it stupid? Yeah, it's annoying. Which is why I really like the FF. If you don't know that they're gonna go ahead and offer any kind of compensation, go in with the FF. You can always change it if they ask you to. But you've now made your offer contingent on what your buyer asked you to do. Does that make sense? Any questions?
Yes, Carrie.
Yeah, Care. Hey.
Good morning.
Yeah.
So do you feel like just in your recommendation, because I have been asking in this current market, I feel like it's been good for me to ask for it in closing costs. Sometimes I feel like I can get a little bit of leverage that way. What do you think? What are your thoughts on that?
I mean, listen, if you want to just put it into closing costs, you can do so. It doesn't really necessarily matter. That's you asking, writing in buyer and seller agree, seller to contribute XYZ, $5,000, whatever, towards the closing costs, right? That's what you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, what I think is going to happen eventually is that people will catch on.
Mm-hmm.
And pretty soon they will start saying, what's it for? Right.
Yeah, they do. Yeah.
So I think you're not fooling anybody at some point, and it's really the buyer asking for it anyway. And the
Mhm.
FF is truly the same thing because they're not saying they're going to use it for compensation necessarily. They're saying they may use all, part, or some, or they may not. The FF doesn't necessarily say it is going to be used for compensation. So truly, that is exactly what the FF is for. It's just that people are not that smart. I mean, I don't know how else to say that other than the truth, right? That's the reality, Carrie, right? I mean, let's be honest. This is what it is. People don't get that. And so if you sent in an FF, you could say, listen, my buyer wants to use this money for closing costs. They may use all, part, or some of it for my compensation or not, which is why they chose the FF. They may want to use it for a puppy. We don't know. It's not really our business to know. It's the buyer asking the seller. That is the point of the FF. What I like about the FF is it also deals with what if the lender, it's beyond the debt to income ratio. Now, the reality is most of our people are not there. So normally we don't have to deal with that. It also talks about the language that there's a buyer broker agreement. So it takes those things off the table. Yes.
We don't need the seller broker to buyer broker agreement then on there?
No.
Check the FF?
No, because that is the compensation agreement. Yeah. You only need seller's broker to buyer's broker if they have agreed that they're going to offer compensation. See, if someone says, I'm going to share something, I am going to, no. On our side, when we're listing agents, I'm going to tell you, we always want to be the ones handling the compensation, don't we? This is our exclusive right to sell listing agreement. And if it's our opportunity, we want to make sure that we select A. Now, there are some situations where they say, we're not offering. So then we're going to say C, right? But we are never going to select B. Does that make sense, everybody? We're either going to select A or we're going to select C. Everybody with me on that? So that means we're either going to use seller's broker to buyer's broker, or an F would be fine. But why would we ever use B? We're not. So sellers to buyer's broker is really the same thing as the FF. They're truly the same. Right? Same. We're leaving it between the buyer and the seller.
But on the listing side, you want us to have the seller's broker, buyer's broker compensation agreement.
Always.
Okay. But when we're making an offer on the buying side, we don't need it.
Yes.
Okay.
Well, we're on the buy side. If they're saying we're not, we don't know what the compensation, they're not offering compensation, put it in your offer, put it in as an FF. If they change their mind and they say we want the seller's broker to buyer's broker, well, that was the wrong thing to say, wasn't it? Because that means you actually had A checked, which we can't really ask them because that's a code of ethics violation. We really are not privy to what's on their listing agreement, just like they're not privy to what's on our buyer's broker agreement. Title company should be, right? But we can't really ask for it. They can't ask for ours. It's like, don't show, don't tell. I don't know, whatever. But at the end of the day, A is for seller's broker to buyer's broker. B or C, right? It's really the seller and the buyer handling it, isn't it? And that's truly seller to buyer's broker or FF. They're the same exact form. The problem with seller to buyer's broker is it's not in the contract, which is why you then need the GG. Because now you got to make it contingent, right? Because now we got to be talking about it. Now we got to make sure buyer and seller are agreeing. The FF, we don't have to do that. It's in the contract. Make sense? Why are we convoluting it? Because they like to. Because it's just not fun if we don't have an extra form. Yeah, they like to add forms. They're like form people. We'll probably have more forms this year. Don't worry. There's going to be more to come. Don't worry. There's always more. Yes.
Carrie,
Yes.
so when you have a seller's broker to buyer's broker compensation agreement, are you recommending then that we add that into the contract under
Yes.
other?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, absolutely. You're going to go
Okay.
other seller's broker to buyer's broker. You have to incorporate it in. And then,
Ah.
Oh, that's good to know.
yeah, and then otherwise it's not party to the contract. And people who tell you not to do it don't know anything what they're talking about. Even Joanna Watkins, who is the head legal counsel for Florida Realtors, said to add that in there. So if someone's like, oh, that's wrong, say, call Joanna Watkins and ask her. Because that's what she said to do. And if they have a problem with that, there's also a video that explains it, which clearly they were not part of that that seminar when she talked about it, but they can go and watch it. I'm sure they missed it. Yeah, but you want to incorporate it. Because if we're not incorporating it in there, we're not part of the contract. How does anybody even know what's happening? Right? They don't. But then I would also recommend you might want the GG. Because now listen, here, guys, if let's say April is the listing agent, I'm the buyer's agent, I say, how much are you offering compensation? She says 2.5. My buyers want 3. Right? This happens all the time. There's 2 options here, guys. I ask my buyers, they say, go for 3. I could still go on a seller's broker to buyer's broker and ask for 3. Just because they said they're offering 2.5 doesn't mean I have to go in with 2.5 and go in on a different form for the other half. I asked for the 3, but I also put on a GG because I know I'm going outside of what they wanted, right? So I said other seller's broker to buyer's broker and the GG, because now we know we're outside of what they agreed upon. So we got to talk about it. It's an offer, right? Does that make sense? But if she said 3 and we wanted 3, we know we're good. Do I have to add the GG? No. I just put seller's broker to buyer's broker, check it in there and throw it along with it. We're all on the same page. Why would we have to change it? Does that make sense?
Recently, the seller's broker to buyer broker was played in a scenario just like you said.
Uh-huh.
But why then would you even need the GG if you're still submitting that as an other?
You only need the GG if you know that they're going to change. They're not going to agree to the percentage.
Okay, so you need it
see?
in addition to the
Yeah.
seller's broker to buyer's broker.
Yeah,
even
'cause-
if you know why, because this seems like an extra addenda.
Because it says that they have 3 days unless you change the date to agree on the percentage that is being offered on there.
What they do is they don't return
Yeah.
that form, the compensation form, and they say, oh, we're executed. Well, are you or aren't you? Because you didn't tie it to the contract.
But if it's in other, it isn't.
It is in contract, but let me ask you this. I put it in offer, right? And I say home to sell contingency. They send me back an executed contract without home to sell contingency. Are we executed or are we not executed? They didn't give me. Now, we're not. What's happened is they've countered.
Yeah, right.
It's a counter. It's truly what it is, right? Until I have accepted the change, that's a change in terms. It's really a counter. But the problem is it's gray. And I hate gray.
It's messy.
Do you like gray? I don't like gray. It's gray outside. It's ugly. I like blue. Blue skies, clear, sunshine. So my point is anytime you can take some gray out, do it. That's why I like the GG. Does that make sense? Yes, you have incorporated it. So truly when you come back, it's a counter. But at the same token, if you can make it a little sunshiny, I would. Clear it up.
It wasn't a fun conversation with my buyer trying to explain that,
Yeah.
yeah, they just didn't return it, so.
But the reality is, guys, if you had put in a home to sell contingency, I sent it back signed and I didn't send you back to home to sell contingency. Are we executed? Not really. No, because unless you've acknowledged that you're moving forward without the home to sell contingency, we're not truly executed. I countered your terms. Right? Does that make sense? Okay. By the way, that happens also all the time, and people don't realize it until later, and then they're like, well, we had a home to sell contingency. No, you didn't, because I never sent it back. Well, but we didn't acknowledge that we agree. Well, but you did not acknowledge. I mean, so now you get gray again. So we always have to make sure that these things are clear. Okay, moving on. All right. Oh, well, we talked about that. There you go. True or false? Oh, well, we already know that there is more. GG, we just went through that. If you're selling a home with solar panels, you only need to add language to additional terms. Is this true, guys? Thank God. Yes, we are doing a lot of things because this is one of my least favorite things, guys. Let's just spend a moment on solar, shall we? Yes, just a brief, fun moment on solar. I hate solar. First of all, you're so funny. First of all, can we ask ourselves, do they own the solar panels? Are they leased outright? Are they leased? Or are they mortgaged? Right? We need to know those things. And if they're mortgaged, is it a PACE loan? That's another question you need to find out these days. These are becoming a little bit more popular. God help us all. As soon as those evil, evil solar people figure this out, we're in so much trouble. I know it's a terrible thing because the PACE program is supposed to improve the home. And if these people who tell us that the grid is full and then it's going to improve your value, here's the problem with the PACE, guys. It attaches to your taxes. And if someone has improved their property, adding windows, making it hurricane proof, Lord help us adding solar panels, I'm going to throw up right now. Using a PACE loan, no, the person buying the property cannot have a mortgage because that lender has to put their mortgage as a second to the taxes. Because what happens? Well, how can you lose your property if you do not pay governmental assessments or taxes? What lender is willing to put their loan as a second to that? Any? Do I have any firsts coming? Anybody takers? No takers. So that means that seller of the home who thought they made their home better because they were sold a bill of goods, which was all lies by the evil solar people, they will now have to pay that thing off. Which, by the way, and I've been talking, and I need to send it to my buddy Rick Scott now, because we need to go after these people. There's no oversight in the solar world. Does everybody know that? So if I'm an evil solar person, which you know I'm not, but if I was, I see Lynn, he's a little tough. I might not be able to sell him that much. So and let's say Lynn and April have the exact same homes, but April seems so sweet. So I can sell Lynn the same exact solar panels for 20,000. I'm going to send to sell to April for 40.
Oh, so for 100 to go.
Or whatever, it doesn't matter is the point, right? And then I can sell it to Keith for 50, and I'm going to tell Keith, guess what, Keith, you don't have to pay anything for them because you're going to rent them. And if you want to sell your home, no problem, we can just take them. Lies, lies, and more lies. And here's my favorite part. I love this. By the way, if you just put on a new roof, oh, so sorry to hear it, but your warranty is gone. And the rental ones are old. They're not even the new solar panels. And of course, you don't get any kind of anything like a tax credit or something because you don't own them, by the way. It went to the person who owns the solar panels, not you. And here's my favorite part on the rental panels. Let's say your lease is for, I think it was like 35, 40 years, but the warranty, I love that, from the rental company is 25 years. How does that work? I'm just, the math is a little bit confusing.
But if there is a benefit for tax, that's going to the utility company.
Oh, it did. It went to the utility company. And here's another fun thing. You don't have to pay anything. Really? Because you pay rental every year that goes up 5% each year, and you still have to pay the electric company. So it would probably take you 3 lifetimes to get any benefit at all from these things. And your roof is leaking. And if you want to sell your house, guess what? Somebody has to be approved for these things. Who'd want to buy them? I'm not quite sure. And oftentimes you have to look at the program. The whole thing will start over again for them. Not the new, they don't get new ones, just the whole program in terms of how much they have to pay will start over. Anybody want to buy them?
Absolutely no home.
You've actually got people to pay for, and you sleep at night.
Well, if you get it, all right.
Okay, I'm not gonna be mean to you because you're not the evil solar people.
You know the funny thing, I actually was walking my neighborhood the other day, well, not the other day, like 2 months ago, and I saw one of my neighbor, I had put it on, and I was like, can you really save money? He's like, yeah, I'm only paying $33. I was like, you know what, well, that's pretty good. This is when we got slapped with a $950 electricity bill. I was like, you know what, you take a look and see. So I had the guy come over for fun, and back to what you said. So that owner had paid a $95,000 system on their roof. So after talking to the guy, he's like, oh, I'll give it to you for $40,000 only. I'm like, what? I mean, he mapped everything out and he's like,
Yep.
you'll be paying $35 only, but your system would only cost you 40,000.
Uh-huh.
I was like, man, that sounds really good, but I don't want to put on my roof, so
No.
it's not happening.
No. Yeah, unbelievable. Okay, so then in addition to if it wasn't a PACE loan, which we can only hope and pray it's not, we have to go to the only thing that is in our attorney folder, which is attorney addendas, is the solar panel addenda. And the reason it's in there is because it was so long, I couldn't fit it under additional clauses. So I had to create a whole nother folder for it. And it's the solar panel addenda. And this one actually goes into all of those things like, is it a leaseholder? Who is the person that has the account? What's the account number? What are the monthly fees? What is the financing? If it's financed, if it's the lease, when does it expire? Never. Oh, wait, did I say that? Okay. So I mean, eventually, well, the leases are the worst. If you have a lease person, I'm sorry to say, I'm sorry, I can't rent your home. I can't take your home. We're not going to sell it. Okay. Is it subject to, and see here, it talks about what kind of things. Is it a lease? Is it financing? Is it buyer seller agree? And these are the things. Is the seller going to pay it off? Is the buyer going to assume it? And if they are, what is the name of the energy company? What's their information? And then here, this is the due diligence that you recommend the buyer is going to do. Okay. And then it goes into more. Now, also, it gives the buyers 3 days to assume before the closing date. And if they can't, they can get out. Because guess what? They may not even be able to get approved. So
Now, the newest thing too, is you could add on there is, does it have the lithium battery pack? And if so, is it raised above floodplain? Because otherwise your house is going to explode and burst into flames when the floodwaters come in on the other side.
oh, so this is along the coastline. Super fun. Oh, super fun. Yeah, I'm glad we live in Central Florida. I haven't seen that edition. But yes, so guys, if you have a home that has solar panels, there's a lot of information you need. You need to get it all ahead. It all needs to be disclosed. And I guarantee your deal may blow up from it. Oh, did I say that out loud? That was a little bit negative. I'm sorry. Your deal may blow up from it. Is that better? I don't know.
Carrie,
Yes.
I have a question for you.
Yeah.
So over here on the coast again, we've had 2 solar companies that have gone out of business and nobody can locate. However, the automatic payments still come out.
Oh.
Like in that situation, is the homeowner pretty much just screwed? Or,
she probably, or he probably can stop the automatic payments and see what happens. I would, if the company's out of business.
But would they still have the lien? Would title be able to clear?
Well, that's a great question, because if the company's out of business, you probably can get somebody to clear that title. You might need an attorney though. But if there's no company, who the hell are you paying?
Exactly. Somehow it still mysteriously comes out, and the one company, the owner, reincorporated under a different name.
Well, then that's probably who you're paying. That doesn't mean they could probably assume that debt in another company, and yeah, chapter, depending on how they filed it. And listen, these people are evil. Remember, I told you, evil solar panel people. So they come up with evil ways to get around evil things. So they need to seek legal advice from the evilness of it all. Yeah.
Thank you.
Sorry, I wish I had better news. Solar's bad all the way around, which is terrible, because the concept of using the sun to help pay your bills is wonderful. They've just turned it into something evil and horrible.
It's actually good if it's paid off.
Yeah, sure. And then your roof, because if you need to do your roof again, when they do a new roof, they're not going to want to put it back on, and it will have no warranty.
6 to 10,000 on top of the new.
And you'll have no warranty on the new roof.
The new ones they put on the gazebo.
Yeah,
the
they
other
won't
ones
warranty
are-
your roof if you have solar panels, because you have to attach them to the roof. And when you attach them, it affects the roof is the problem. Yeah, because how do you think they attach it? They don't glue
No, I
it.
know that. If it's a new roof,
Others.
No, it takes away the warranty every time. Every time. As a matter of fact, if you look through any of the warranties that you get from any roofing company, which by the way, good luck trying to get a roofing company to keep up with the warranty. That's another whole story. But I will say they actually are now adding solar panel disclaimer sections. Super fun. Yeah, all good stuff, guys. Loving it. Okay, moving on. Oh, there's our solar panel addendum. Okay. There's our GG. Okay. Is a seller's disclosure required? What do you guys think? Anybody?
By you or by the student?
No, it's no.
The truth is, no, it is not required. Daphne's like, what? True story, it should be. The only disclosure required by the state of Florida is now the flood disclosure that became required as of last October. Thank you, Governor DeSantis. But no, the seller's disclosure is not required. Let me show you what is required. If you look in our exclusive right of sale listing agreement, what it clearly states is right here. Make legally required disclosures, including all facts that materially affect the property's value that are not readily observable to the buyer. It is required that you put in writing anything you know. That could be a local government, building codes, unobservable defects. The seller must put it in writing. See, that's what this whole little tiny little line is about. That is the true requirement by law. But since we know this is a tiny little line, we have taken such great lengths to create a seller's disclosure to jog their memory. And the reality of that seller's disclosure is really for them. Because the number one reason, and we see it every time we go to Florida Realtors, they tell us about all the lawsuits we've had, which by the way, only increase. And then they tell us, in addition to the lawsuits, what they're for. And every time, the number one reason for lawsuits between buyers and sellers, and us, in fact, is always lack of disclosure, every time. So it is a known thing. Many times, sellers may have situations that they seem to forget about. It's like craziness. And then the buyer moves in and they're like, how come the roof started leaking or all my appliances backed up or whatever the case may be. These are things more than likely the seller knew about, but never disclosed, and they needed to disclose. And if you look back at the seller's disclosure, it's really awful when they say, was it working properly? And they say, yes. Now, if they would have at least said, I don't know, I didn't live there, then that's okay. But it's really bad when they say, yes, it's fine. It looks great. So this is typically what happens. And this is usually when we see a lot of lawsuits. And every time I've been involved in depositions, that seller's disclosure comes up every time. So it's very critical that when we're assisting our sellers, we never fill it in, but we tell them to take their time in filling it in with the best information they have. If they don't know, right, I don't know, but never leave it blank, because blank oftentimes gives an indication of you're trying to be sneaky, right? And it definitely leaves a question, gives an opportunity for an attorney to go back and say, well, you didn't fill this in. Why didn't you fill it in? Did you know so? And that's the problem. And that's where we've seen attorneys go with that. But it's worse if you say, yes, everything is great, but then we find out it wasn't great and you knew about it.
I have a question.
Yes.
Hey, my question is, some of my sellers won't fill it out, but yet when we process our files, our office admin people haunt you for it. I have sellers that won't fill it out because they do not have the correct information or they haven't lived there.
Then
So
they
I'm sure
should
you're
fill
gonna
in,
show me
I don't
something else.
know. They should be filling in, I don't know.
But they won't do a damn thing. They have been instructed by their attorney counsel that that is not needed and they do not need to fill it in.
Well,
said,
we have a new
okay.
one that they can do, that it's right here. And it's called property disclosure statement. And they have to do this one then. And it lets
And
them
where
know
is this one located?
right in the listing folder.
Okay.
And
Okay.
this one says that the seller and broker have discussed the seller's legal obligations regarding property disclosure. They acknowledge under applicable law that they're aware of facts and conditions that materially affect the value of the property and that are not readily observable or known to the buyer. The seller is legally obligated to disclose that information if known to any potential buyer. So basically, where a broker is strongly advising the seller to complete the seller's property disclosure statement. So we're basically washing our hands of this. By signing below, the seller confirms they made full and complete disclosure and they agree to indemnify us. So,
All right, so I cannot use the, so let me give you another situation. I have sellers that are,
says right here, ownership is held by an estate, financial institution, or other entity, and the seller has never occupied the property. Right here, you can check that.
good, thanks.
For that exact purpose, what you were saying. And they have no limited or no personal knowledge of it. That's why you're saying they cannot, they don't want to fill it in. It's this box below.
So ludicrous, because as a landlord, the toilet leaks.
They know everything. Exactly. Yeah. If they have not lived there, they probably rented it or had someone taking care of it, right? So they've been told probably what's wrong with it, but that's okay. Then they could just check this and say, that's why they don't know. They have limited knowledge. And so they can check that. But it basically says, we've told them what their obligations are to disclose. We've strongly recommended that they do it, but they say that they don't want to do it. So there they go, and they can sign this. It's really our huge CYA, Angela, to say, we've told you what your duty to disclose is. So, and we had to do this because we've been sued so many times now because of this. And what happens is they get
I
sued.
agree.
So the buyer is suing the seller. And then they drag Premier Sotheby's in every time because we're Premier Sotheby's. And they're like, you have to help represent us. Why do we have to represent anybody? It's ridiculous. So this is our CYA because we're done with it. And we have to pay thousands upon thousands of dollars every year because of this. So this is our new form. So if you have anybody who will not sign a seller's disclosure, they must sign this.
And if
Or
they
you
if
say
they refuse to sign that,
then the TOM, we're not going to represent them. We're not going to represent them because guess what? We're sick and tired of paying the legal fees because they're going to get sued and so are we.
They won't sign one of those two, they're gonna be a problem anyway.
Yeah, well, they're going to get sued and we're going to get sued right along with them. I can't tell you how many times I've been dragged into this. Personally, I've seen it so many times in my offices alone, and they've all signed the seller's disclosure. Imagine when they haven't, right? And those are the ones that we're able to fight because they signed seller disclosures. Imagine the ones that haven't. We end up paying every time. Yeah. So everybody good with that?
Carrie, if you've got a seller that, sometimes they fill out something on the seller's disclosure, for example, that they had a water leak and they put details about it on the seller's disclosure or a roof leak or something. Would you advise that we put under 7G there in the contract, see seller's disclosure, and then add the seller's disclosure under other?
Well, the seller's disclosure is going to go along with it. I would not modify the contract. No.
Okay.
Always just give the thing that we don't want to do is bring attention to it, right? Unnecessarily so, because I'm sure
Right.
they had it fixed.
Yeah.
Right? So the point is the seller is doing their due diligence by disclosing it. They also had taken care of it. So we don't need to keep saying, look here, look here, look here, you know what I'm saying? But at the same
Yeah.
token, we do need to disclose it for sure. Absolutely. So
Okay.
no, but do not add it to the contract. But thank you for asking. That was a very good question. Okay, so see, aren't we having so much fun? Don't you guys love a contract addenda stuff? Okay. That is the actual requirement. That's the stuff that's written in. The new flood disclosure, we all know about this. So the new flood disclosure, this is the actual new flood disclosure. And you better make sure because it's on everything, condos, everything but land, obviously. But this is a requirement that we have to include on all listings. We must include, it is by Florida statute 689.302, that the seller must complete the flood disclosure for any residential real property. So it doesn't really matter. Okay. So make sure you have this for every property. Okay. Well, that's the flood disclosure. There's the flood disclosure. Okay. So these fees have changed. Let's talk about a little bit. This is in the association fees. People get confused where to write what the fees are.
It's HOA or condo.
This is HOA, and in an HOA fee, when you're talking about special, like for example, if you have, when you're joining an HOA, oftentimes they have initial capital contribution, or they call it other things. But where do we put that? This is going to be on the second page, right? It's not on the first page. We don't include it in. This is where we have to make sure we're putting in this information. Now, I will tell you that if it doesn't get in, they really can't sue us, but this will blow up your deal. So even we've gotten the new condominium rider. There's so many new rules with that. There's a billion ways they can get out, blah, 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 blah. But even homeowners association, there's a lot of homeowner associations that have capital contributions. I mean, Laureate Park, oh dear Lord, they catch you coming and going, right? Like there's so many costs that are associated with buying in Laureate Park. Oh, exactly. The enhancement fee. Thank you. There's but 3 fees, I think, when you buy in there. Isn't there? The first initial capital contribution, the enhancement fee, and then isn't there one about
Enhancement fees for the seller.
yeah, well, but there's 2 other fees.
Fee, capital contribution.
Transfer fee. There's
Yeah.
the transfer fee, the capital contribution fee, and then of course you actually have to pay your dues, the initial debt. So you have 3 fees that you have to pay when you first join Laureate Park. You have to make sure that you're bringing them out and showing them if it's a one-time fee, if it's going to be a recurring fee. You have to make sure that you're putting them in the right places and you're disclosing them ahead. I mean, that initial capital contribution is like 2,500 or more. It's expensive. That could blow a deal up.
Question on this here.
Mhm.
I always try to get them all on there, but a
Mhm.
lot of times HOAs won't give it to me,
I hate that.
which is frustrating because they're like, well, which I know enough neighborhoods that I'm in that some of them are small, it's not gonna be a deal breaker. But if you go to like over here, like Bentley Park, Emerson Point, those are like $5,000-$10,000.
Yes, it is.
In place, and you as a buyer, if that's not in there being disclosed, if
It'll blow up your deal.
right.
Yeah.
So
But those homes are about 120 or they're over 100 units, isn't it? In those communities?
small,
They're smaller than that? Hmm.
small.
Well, that's the problem because remember over 101, I think it is now, starting in January 1st, those fees will be on the websites. But I don't know in the small communities. I mean, that's a great question.
Yeah, because I always try to put that in there because I don't want my deal to blow up for someone to say, hey.
I think, and I am talking out of school here, but Trey said something about it, but I do, Trey William, the guy who's for government affairs, but they're still talking more and more because we all know there is, I'm not going to say a problem, and I'm going to say challenges within the HOA, condo association world. We have challenges still. They're out there, right? We're aware of that. So they're trying to get more transparency in everything. That's a big thing that they're working on. So I think it was a big win to get this new websites out. And they keep bringing down the size of the communities, 101. But to your point, if they're even smaller, but I think there's going to be upward pressure even on the tiny communities to continue to make those sites. So we'll hang tight, but I'm sure that they're going to be doing things to make even those tiny things compliant. Nothing has been set in stone yet, but I know he did make a reference to that in our last meeting with him. He was talking about that. So I don't know what they'll be, or if maybe the sizes will go down to 25. I don't know. He didn't actually state it, but I know they're talking about that because they're trying to get everything to be transparent. And for those obvious reasons. So, but I mean, we know that that's a big problem, but it's about having the information available at all times by anybody who's an interested party, period. So, but that's a great point. Yeah. Okay, so here's the homeowners association. And obviously the other thing that oftentimes we see wrong, when you have fees that are quarterly or monthly, sometimes people put them on twice. Be very careful that you're putting the fees in the right place and don't make it look like it costs more money. The other thing is that sometimes in the MLS, we see it makes it look like when you have CDD fees and homeowners fees, it looks like it's doubled. So we just have to make sure that we're putting those fees in so it doesn't look even more expensive than it is. That's one of the things I've noticed have been a problem. So, but we definitely have to make sure that we're disclosing how much it costs when you first start at some of these communities, because that definitely totally can blow your deal up.
Well, parents, you wouldn't put the CDD on.
No, the CDD would not be on here. We'd put a CDD disclosure. And I'm going to tell you, the CDD disclosure does say you only need it on the first time. I disagree with that. I think we should always be disclosing the CDD. The reason they say that is because after the first time, it's in the tax bill. I know, but I still think you should use a CDD disclosure because you need to break out what it is. Nobody understands what a CDD is, especially the consumer, right? They have no clue. And then they see it added onto their tax and they're like, what the heck is this? So it explains to them what it is. And I think if we say it's part of your taxes, but this is what it is and this is what it does, I think it's helpful information. So yes, it is only a requirement the first time you do the transaction, but that's why I believe, and I think for me, communication is everything. And I think over communication, no, do not put a mold addenda if there's no mold. That's not over communication. That's stupid communication, right? But if there is a CDD, to use a CDD addendum when it's not required is still a good thing because it explains what the CDD is. Does that make sense? Any questions on that? Any other questions about this? Did you have one, Maria? You're going to say something?
Related, I'm having trouble finding in some of the counties, because they're all different.
Mhm.
Finding a clear way of identifying on the tax roll what the CDD is, because they're all so convoluted, they're all so different. And if
That
I-
is true. That's the other reason it's great to have the CDD addenda because they're rolled in there and you can't oftentimes see it on the tax bill. That's a great point. How can you? Because you can't see it. Right. Well,
Any tips and tricks?
I wish I did, because
Usually when you go to property appraisal in the tax part, you'll see the breakdown. It's usually there.
Different
On
county.
county.
yeah,
On
Every county's
stuff,
different.
Like that.
Well,
yeah. Some of the counties are bizarre, like Citrus doesn't do it
Like
like
I can
that.
spot an orange, similar, but I was looking
Yeah.
at another county, I'm like, what am I looking at here?
no, I'm only looking at this.
I would say, yeah, I would say though, hopefully, when those community websites, that will also be part of it because it is a CDD and that was part of the community development district. So it should, even though it's not being charged by them, should be broken out, should be shown on there. So that hopefully will be helpful, but I wish I could tell you more. Yeah. Okay, if your seller wants to offer financing, can you write it in simple terms under additional terms? Please, dear God, do not do that. Okay, unless you happen to hold a mortgage broker's license that's current and active, please do not do that. Contact Heather and Chris Musto. They'll be more than happy to assist you. But this is why we have the financing addenda. It's a seller financing addenda. Would you like me to show you where it is? But I'll be more than happy to do so. Let's take a quick peek. Yes, I think that's a great idea. Right over here, it is seller financing, C. And remember, when you want to find what it is, and you want to go in here, you go to templates, you go down to, which one is it, guys? Florida Realtors Interactive Form. There you go. Sometimes it makes you put your thing in. You have to agree. Yes, I agree. And then it lets me look again. And then you can put C. And then look, it shows you right there, seller financing. And you always want to make sure it doesn't say crisp, because are we a crisp? No, Panhandle uses crisp. We don't use crisp. There we go. It depends on how complicated it is. Truly, I would prefer it to, or a mortgage broker could do it too. But
Attorney.
I would much prefer an attorney to do it. But
Just for a symbol.
this is a very simple thing. If they were going to do something super, super simple, but this is a seller financing addenda. But again, if you're really doing seller financing, I would rather an attorney do it all day long. But this is better than you doing it. Okay. You should never do anything outside your scope. Okay. We all go with that one? Excellent. Oops. Where did it go? Okay. If the contract is subject to a management company's contract or a seasonal agreement already in place, is there addenda for that? Anybody know what it is? DD, seasonal and vacation rentals. Don't forget this one. This is a very exciting one. And you have to make sure, just like if it is subject to a lease, it's subject to this as well, which means they have how many days to review it? 5. How many days do they have to review a lease? I just told you 5. So if you're subject to a lease, remember, you have to check subject to a lease. You have to have the lease. They have 5 days. You have 5 days to get it to them within the after the execution date. Then the buyer has 5 days to review it. If they don't say anything, they've accepted it. But if they are not comfortable with it, they can in writing say they don't want it and cancel the contract. That's what subject to means, right? So this is why it's important. 5 days, same thing with seasonal, okay? What addenda is required when a seller has used a specific program that most lenders will require a release from before they'll lend on the property? PACE. That is the PACE. If a seller has used a PACE loan for anything, if they've used it for new windows, if they've used it for the evil solar panels, if they've used it for any kind of home improvement, and they're starting to get a little more popular, which is scaring me, because as great as they appear to be, they're not great at all, because the seller will have to pay it off unless they're going to sell their home cash. So we have to be very versed in telling the seller, either you pay that loan off, or you sell it cash, because you cannot sell your home to somebody who needs a loan. Are we clear on that? No lender will ever agree to that. In an appraisal contingency, one of the buyer's options is the seller will have to adjust the price, or the buyer will cancel. Is that true? So if the buyer has put in an appraisal contingency, one of the options is that the seller will have to adjust the price, or the buyer will cancel. Is that true? Has that ever been?
No, the seller's not required to adjust the price. It's just an opportunity for a renegotiation. But buyer has right to cancel if they don't agree and get their escrow back.
That is 100% correct, Carrie. And by the way, I've been doing this for just a few years, 20 some odd. And I never remember that being an option. Everybody thought it was, but it never was in there. I can't remember a time that it actually ever said that. Everyone always just thought it did, because everyone always likes to change the contract. But no, it never ever did. It just said that the buyer has the right to get out of the contract. That's it.
It might have been market pressures is what they're thinking, because, but yeah.
I don't know. It never said the seller has to change the price to the appraised value. It never said that. I mean, I would challenge someone to bring that to me if it never said that, because I cannot remember that at all. Yeah. No, but see, the buyer can deliver the appraisal within 3 days. Oh yeah, and did you know that? So right here, if the property appraises for less, the buyer shall deliver a copy of the appraisal. Did you know that? They had to deliver the copy of the appraisal. They can't just tell you, they have to give you the appraisal. Yeah, I can't tell you how many times we never actually got the appraisal. They actually have to give you the appraisal, and then they can terminate the contract. All right, defective drywall, guys. If you're going to say, okay, what years would be applicable for defective drywall? Anybody? 0407, when we had the smelly egg smelling. That's right. Which, by the way, did not happen in Central Florida. Naples, terrible, but not here. South Florida was horrible. Ugh, so bad. Yep. Lead-based paint. When was it? Pre what? 78.
78.
That's right. Okay. If the sale of the buyer's property addenda, the sale of the buyer's property does not close, how long does the buyer have to give written notice to terminate the contract and get the deposit back? How long do they have?
Says 3 days.
Oh, you're looking at it. You're not supposed to look at it.
I didn't look at it.
Yes. So they have 3 days after. So if they said it was going to close on the 5th, after the 5th, they have 3 days to cancel the contract in writing. And if they don't cancel the contract, what happens? They can't cancel and get their money back. They are hard on their money, right? Also, if Mhm.
Business or camera?
calendar days. The only thing that's business in our contracts now, which is retarded, is the condo, which should never have been. I don't know why they did that. Everything else in our contracts is calendar. The buyer's property is or is not presently under contract. If the buyer's property is under contract, right, the buyer shall provide the seller a copy of the contract. Guys, please do yourselves a favor. If the buyer's property is under contract, always, always get a copy of the contract. We have a situation where we didn't get it, and we're wondering if it truly was even ever under contract. We think it was a fraudulent sale.
I'd say always get a contract and always touch base with the listing agent.
Well, we did. It's a long story,
Yeah.
but
Oh, that's-
it's a very long, long story. But anyway, okay. As long as there's an email between agents with the buyer's intentions to be a backup contract, is it an implied contract?
I thought, yes.
Yeah, no, there is no such thing as an implied contract, although that was a fun thing for me to write. Yeah, also too, there's no such thing as we don't really follow the dates in certain counties. That's not true either. I've heard that one recently too. Yeah, that wasn't obviously our people. No, we actually always follow dates and there's no implied contracts. We actually follow an executed contract. So.
Your real world.
Yeah, no, unfortunately, yeah, I wish I could tell you that I made these things up, but no, I wish it was. These are actual things that have happened. And I'm like, actually I had a conversation with somebody over a situation. And they're like, Carrie, but here in Marion County, when we're in contract and we're negotiating things, we don't really follow the contract. Excuse me? Well, I've been in Marion County now since 2018 and done a lot of business here, and we've always followed the contract. So we're going to continue to do it that way. Yeah. 1.85. Yeah. Yeah. This same person missed all the deadlines too, and then wanted the deposit back. Yeah.
It's a fluid thing, yeah.
Yeah, it was because we don't really follow the contract. Yeah. 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 It's very interesting.
And they were serious, right?
Dead serious. Yeah. They probably believe in applied contracts too. Well, because when we got the signed addenda the day after, they thought that was okay too. Well, it's only a day. Okay, yeah, no, doesn't work like that either. Yep. Okay. So there is no such thing to be a backup. There's what? A backup addenda. What else do you need in addition to the addenda? The signed contract. The whole contract is signed and executed with the backup addenda. You don't take the deposit because you don't have an executed date. The effective date is when the seller or you, the listing agent, sends them the notification that the first deal went through, and that becomes the effective date. So now whatever the contract that was already executed says, if it's 3 days, now you have 3 days from there to get the deposit in. Does that make sense? Because you already had everything executed. So you can't just have an addenda. That doesn't work either. You need a fully executed contract and the addenda. Are we all good? That's what a true backup contract is. A fully executed contract and a signed addenda, not just an implied conversation. Yeah, I had someone say, well, I have a backup contract. You do? Where is it? Well, we talked about it. That's not a backup contract. That's a backup conversation. There's a difference. And guess what? They lost it. I'm like, no, someone else bought it. Maybe they actually had the contract. You had the conversation.
Lost the implied house, not the actual house.
Yeah, well, their buyers were not super happy about it because they wanted the real one, not the fake one. Can the backup contract addenda in the backup contract addenda, can the buyer terminate the contract anytime before it goes effective? So here's a question. I have a buyer. We wrote a backup contract, got it executed, wrote the backup addenda. We were going to close on it. Obviously, we give a time frame. Actually, let's look at that because people are like, now we're just talking about silliness and we have no idea. So how do I know how to find it? Well, we look here and we see W, backup contract. Oh, great. So now when we look in here, we write W, backup, and there it is. So easy. Easy peasy, lemon squeezy, makes it so simple. This backup contract is subject to the termination of the prior execution contract between seller and third party for the sale of the property. Prior to the execution of the contract is terminated, the seller delivers written notice of the termination to the buyer on or before. So I'm giving you a time frame that I'm willing to wait. I'm willing to wait till November 31st. Boy, I'm giving you a lot of time. But April is my customer, and she says to me on November 1st, Carrie, I've decided to move to Aruba. What? Can I cancel the contract is the question.
She's
Correct.
telling you when,
So as long as I,
November 1st.
November 1st. So as long as I notify them in writing, we are withdrawing our backup offer. This contingency shall be removed as a backup contract and shall move into first position, or the effective date of this backup contract is the date they deliver notice of the termination prior to this November 30th. The buyer may terminate this backup contract by delivering written notice to the seller prior to that date. No monies have changed, remember, because November, let's say this thing went into, they got it executed, the thing fell through November 5th. November 5th would become the execution date, the effective date, and we would have 3 days, let's say that was in my contract, for her to put her money down. But since we've already pulled it out as November 1st, because she's moving to Aruba, must be nice. I'm going to go visit her down there. Yeah. So that's how that works. Everybody good on that? Oops, we're over time. Okay, so should we have our addenda part 2 roulette on next Monday? We all having fun with our
Yes.
Okay. All right, great. Well, I hope you guys have learned a couple things. I always have fun on my contract days. So we will continue because there's so much more fun to go. And I will see you all then. And I'll see you on Thursday for our sales meeting in person in Lake Nona. I'll have some food or via Zoom, whichever way you want to go. Bye, guys.
Bye.
Thanks, Carrie.
Bye.